All right, everybody, welcome to the second week of the Armchair Sports Universe Weekly Recap Podcast. I'm joined with my co-hosts, Steelbacker and Coco. How you guys doing?
Doing swell.
Fantastic.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. We're going to jump with Coco. Give us a breakdown on what is happening in the world of the Armchair Soccer Federation.
Well, we just had a world transfer record breaker or world record transfer. There we go. If I can talk. We had, let's see, Morgan Rogers sold from Aston Villa to Napoli for £211 million. I don't have the USD conversion for that, so forgive me. But
give us an American sports conversion for that. What's the equivalent? That move.
Oh gosh, let's see. Probably. Oh yeah, there it is. So it converts to $281 million. It's stupid. It's insane. The previous record was, let's see, I think it was 200 million for Neymar, going from Barcelona to Paris. So it's weird for this much money to be spent all at once, especially by an Italian team. But the way our transfers work, selling to computer teams, it's based off a calculator. It's based off game performance and contract factors, age, all that stuff. And they just happen to get the right mix of factors and numbers together that it's set the world record. So way to go, Aston Villa.
Way to go, CPU.
Yeah, way to go, Napoli, that's already spent probably 150 million pounds on our players. They just threw another 200 million in there for kicks and giggles.
This is what happens when you don't have salary caps, folks.
Well, so Italy kind of does, in that they just don't give money to their teams. But we're telling them they have money. So congratulations, Napoli. You have Saudi money now.
All right. Well, interesting. That's definitely a lot of money to kick around. But yeah, what else is cooking over there?
So next week we are starting our summer friendlies for our English and Spanish teams. They're going to be ramping up to the start of their season, which will be in mid-August, mid to late August there. So the way we do it is we let our owners sign up for friendlies. They can say, hey, I want to play this team, or they can just ask different owners and say, hey, I want to play you. And you can say if you want to use your A team, your B team, or just whatever y'all want. Y'all can fuck around. I don't care. As long as you turn in a lineup sheet, I don't care what you do. So we'll have, last season, I think we had 65 preseason friendlies. This year, we're looking at a much more reasonable number. So those will probably be starting on Monday and then going for probably the next 2 weeks.
Nice.
So you'll see soccer on Twitch and YouTube, probably. We'll see.
Okay. And how is we talked a little bit last week about the MLS returning. Did it have its first games come up yet, or is that's the friendlies that you're?
So MLS had a match week last week, and then the second one started last night. And if we go too much longer, my team may come up pretty soon. So if you don't want me swearing on the podcast, it might be good to kick me off before that. But no, MLS is doing well. The transfers are working interestingly for MLS, just because it's so weird with MLS not being a top league in the world, trying to figure out what players would realistically go there.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun thing for our PRC to figure out. Definitely not as someone who's on PRC. It's definitely not a challenge.
All right. Great.
So
is there anything else you want to clue us in about the ACSF right now?
Feel free to tune in to the friendlies, but don't pay too much attention to the results. It's just like preseason in any other sport.
All right, great. Thank you for joining us. We are now going to hop over to Steelbacker, and Steelbacker has something cooking for us with the Armchair Basketball Association. He had an interesting topic that he wanted to go over.
Boy, do I ever. As I am known to do in these leagues, I found myself in a discussion. Some could call it an argument. Um, I wouldn't call it such. We were discussing spirited thing, and I, maybe offhandedly, maybe tongue in cheek, said that the Spurs were trying the Utah Jazz method for getting out of the hole. And so that was the whole joke, essentially. I don't think it's, necessarily the same way. And I, kind of don't think of that necessarily at all like that. But the reason why I was thinking of it in that way is that they spent a lot of money on guys that weren't going to be the engines of their team when they haven't established a way to win basketball games without them. Kind of thinking that you need to be somewhere closer to the middle with the core that you put together, spend on those pieces. You have to at some point, but when you do matters. So for San Antonio, they have Dylan Harper, clean hit, doing great, love it. Big fan of that, but he isn't ready to be the number one because he's not going to quite get the right kind of tendencies, not quite the right kind of badges, not quite the high level of attributes to be the number one in an offense on a good team. And then you draft Cameron Boozer, who I'm a big fan of, but you are going to bank on him as a rookie, helping to anchor that team. But otherwise, I don't really think they've hit on a draft pick, right? I think you'd hope for like 3 to 4 core guys out of your draft picks to be those guys. And they had the picks over these next couple of years to try to add 1 or 2 more of those guys while still having everybody cheap for, say the 28-29 offseason, something like that. Okay. Now they'll still have money available, stuff like that. They have cap space for that year. Could be 60 million or so. So definitely could still flow that way, but they are still spending 64 million on MPJ and Dylan Brooks, both very good players, but also role players. I don't think you're going to expect Dylan Brooks or Michael Porter Jr. to go out and anchor an offense for you. Brooks at least is a very good defender, so you get two-way guy there. But MPJ, he has been a third piece on not great teams here. Like the Spurs have not been the team they needed to be with him, or that's for the Suns, not the team they needed him to be with. And everywhere he's been, he's kind of been an underwhelming third option for these teams. But at moments, goes insane because he's a great shooter. It's streaky. So that was my take coming into it with it. For Utah, things got a lot muddier. I think they spent the money a lot worse. We have Herb Jones sitting here. You threw a bag early on Jalen Johnson, LaMelo Ball. There isn't draft picks on this Jazz team that have hit. They have had to add everybody except for Klingon.
Yeah.
Who Klingon, love Klingon, Blazers legend, but he's a role player too. So your draft pick that you hit is you're a role player in Klingon, ideally a high level role player in Murray Boyles, who's playing good, and then Caleb Wilson, who you're hoping is your superstar, who you started spending the money 2 years before you added Caleb Wilson. You were hoping to already be a playoff team by now.
Yeah.
And you're not. So that was my take. Then I thought, what would be really fun is if I built the teams in the game, gave them, auto rotations, threw them through a season. So this is both teams being built, except for the rookies, because I don't have those yet. My take is that rookies aren't going to move the needle significantly.
Yeah.
They're going to play roles, but they're not going to be your main guy in this first year.
The only way that
even top 4 draft picks.
The only way that they would is if they have an insane year in real life and get the ratings boost.
Kneppel, awesome year in real life.
Yeah.
I don't think he moved the needle for the Lakers last year.
Yeah.
He got to an 86 overall, and they had him up there.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was able to move the needle. I don't think it happens in that first year. You're hoping for a role to play. So they will. I would expect each of these guys to improve the team to some extent. But Utah, in one simulation, won 25 games. Now listen, it's one simulation, whatever. That being a floor that's out there is hugely alarming.
Yeah.
Any team that's expecting to make any noise and is capped out in this sort of manner cannot have a sim this poor.
Yeah.
And it gets worse than this.
I mean,
LaMelo was a third-team All-NBA guy this year.
Yeah,
he went 50, 40, 90 in this season. So he scored 28 a game with 8 assists on 50, 40, 90, and they won 25 games.
Yeah, I mean, just to chime in a little
That's
bit on Utah's end, like there was a conversation a couple days ago where they believed that they would be able to go for the Eastern Conference Final, and like, not that that's not a possibility, but it was brought up like I don't think that they would be one of the four best teams in the East. And when I was looking at it, I was like, there's an argument that in a season that plays out in here, they could end up anywhere from 6 to 11. And if you're 6 to 11 in the Eastern Conference, there's a pretty good chance that you're just not even making the playoffs in the Western Conference. Especially if you're closer to that 11 seed, you're probably going to have a pretty jarring record. So I don't think Utah
yeah.
has a good roster, but it's not like they don't have LaMelo Ball is fantastic, but the way that the roster is built, at least to me, is a little bit funky still. It's a little bit, it's not going to hold up against, I think, the really good teams. And unfortunately for them, there's just a lot of really good teams in the Western Conference.
I mean, that's exactly it. So obviously, I don't think this simulation is going to be what they are.
No,
Like that's an insanely bad simulation. Like I don't think they're this bad. Like all that stuff. I think they're in that mix for the play-in team.
yeah,
But when you talk about spending so much to get here, and they were willing to spend even more assets on top, you got to get better players. Like I think Mikal Bridges, I think that was a fine trade for them overall. But it's a lot of just fine pieces trying to put together. And now I'm not the biggest believer in Jalen Johnson.
yeah,
Real life half court stuff, I think, is going to limit his upside here. Because if you're just like maxing out a fast break, connective guy, there's no utility for him at the top of your team,
yeah,
which sucks. I don't think that's really fair to Jalen Johnson. But like I'm looking at how they're going to build him, and I just don't think it's going to really work.
yeah,
So that's that's where you sit. I mean, they shot okay from three in this, but they just didn't put up enough shots.
yeah.
It's just what it was. They turned it over a little too much, which LaMelo didn't even turn it over. So that's again
I'm curious,
crazy all around.
where did they land in like rebounding?
Bottom 10.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like rebounding does it's a hugely important attribute to have on your roster, both in real life and in here. Like, not gonna say necessarily like I don't know where I land necessarily on the rebounding wins championship stuff. I do kind of tend to lean on like you do need it. Like it is, and especially now what we're seeing with the offensive rebounding stuff in the league, like it's you got to be able to rebound the ball because you want to give your team more possessions. You want to, and that's a huge way to win games.
Yeah, I mean, I built my entire championship teams on rebounding.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think it's important to control those possessions. They were the fifth worst defense in the middle of the pack offense.
Yeah.
Like they just, defense that couldn't really stop anybody. And I think they could do some stuff to mitigate some of that. But at the end of the day, it didn't, work out for them. They were the fifth worst team by differential.
Yeah.
So it's like they weren't that bad. Second worst team in the league bad by like 5 games. They had some poor luck in the outcome here, even within that, but still sitting there at that. But then you kind of go to the flip side. San Antonio went 41-41.
Yeah.
I think they're both kind of at this level. They both scored the same amount of points. San Antonio allowing 5 less points per game, which I think is probably just a little bit of fortune, right? But the Spurs didn't make the play in either.
Yeah.
This is a range where the Spurs, I don't think you should be totally like alarmed yet, right? You can look at this and say, you know what? I don't think that's horrible.
No, I think that's
right. Like you can say, you can go up and down from here.
No,
if you go up here 5 games, you're right in the playoffs.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, in the Western Conference, I think that is fantastic, especially because like you'll expect Cam Boozer to have a pretty good rookie year, so he'll be better next year. You kind of hope that Dylan Harper, maybe they at least find some moments during the regular season where they let him lead the offense, and maybe like that allows him to get tendencies and badge upgrades and stuff like that. But I mean, outside of that, like from what I remember, Gafford is a pretty good rebounder in the game. Jared Allen's a pretty good rebounder in the game, and you got Michael Porter Jr., who's a pretty good player. But on top of all that, like, you have a couple of tradable pieces plus all your draft capital and I think a little bit extra, so you could make a move for a star next year if one becomes available. So I think that that's a fantastic outcome for them if that's what they can manage.
And I'll say one thing I'll say for the Spurs team, they are going to benefit from 4 extra bench guys that are in the mid 70s because I
Yeah.
couldn't get rid of everybody, didn't build them all the way. They benefit from a little bit of depth. They would gain Boozer, obviously. Harper puts up 24 points a game on pretty good efficiency.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're hoping for out of him. But kind of similar to the LaMelo thing, I think you love this sim from him, and it's not putting you in the range that they're talking like themselves to be top 6 team.
Yeah.
It's against real life, but I think the West tier is better. You get 19 from DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't think you're getting 19 from DiVincenzo all that often. And Porter with 15, which is my problem with Michael Porter, is he kind of always sits right here. He
Yeah.
shot 42% from 3 and managed to only score 15 and a half a game.
Yeah.
He just doesn't shoot enough.
Yeah.
And to be the guy who kind of needs to lift your offense up from the bottom 10 range to the middle 10 range. That's the difference between them being a playoff team and not. So if you can get him to score 20 plus points a game, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But they just need volume from scoring, and Harper is going to be the guy to do it. And then it's got to be Porter Jr., who that's what you pay him for is the offense.
Yeah.
So like both these teams, I think the sim was very alarming for the Jazz. It's one I usually would do like 10 to 15 to figure out for myself. I didn't got that kind of time, but I just wanted to do something to see it play
Yeah.
out. And like the Spurs were very streaky. It's 5-6 wins in a row, 8 losses in a row, up and down. So like that could be a sign that a little more stability on the low end. You win 45, but I just think it would be a sign of what I was already thinking about them. Again, confirmation bias to some extent, but I think they're in this range, right around the play-in chase. But they've spent a lot of money long term to do it, and
Yeah.
I just think they would have been better off waiting for another pick to hit.
Yeah.
Hit 2 picks. Make sure you've hit 2 where you come here, because then you have that to fall back on when things don't work out.
Yeah.
If Boozer doesn't hit, but they end up being a team in the middle and their picks are in the teens now, obviously they're hoping Utah sucks because they have their pick.
Yeah.
So, maybe you get another shot at it, but
I was going to say
you're
that's
hoping for some lottery luck.
That's the fun wrinkle to
Either
it
way.
is they get the best of Golden State and Utah's pick. And Golden State has an interesting roster. They could be near the play-in. But they have to fill out their roster still too. They currently only have
The
6
Warriors
guys.
will be bad. I mean, there's nothing they could have really done.
So
the
like if you're
lottery odds are the same as they were last year here. We
Yeah.
didn't vote to do their bullshit.
So if you
obviously greatly helps the Spurs.
That's the thing is like if you're San Antonio, I think you're looking at it, and if you buy that Utah has a weirdly built roster that's probably not going to perform as well as they think it will, and then you also believe that Golden State isn't going to be very good, it's kind of like, yeah, you might want to wait a year just to maximize your own. Like maybe you get 2, top 7 picks, and then those just become picks that, if the draft class is weak, become at least somewhat valuable to a team that's ready to kind of dump a star or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's like if I know that I have a decent chance of getting a top pick from probably most likely Golden State, but also potentially Utah, I mean, I might as well try to get some assets and show the league like, hey, we can be a competitive team. We should be a place that people have an interest in playing for.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, they didn't give up much for Jared Allen, so
Yeah.
usually I'd just be against trading it. But the Miami first, which ended up obviously becoming way worse. So you're not sitting here to do too bad, but also wouldn't have minded having an extra first that year.
Yeah.
I think I just would have spent the money.
Yeah.
Does Jared Allen, change your team this year? Yes, a little bit, but also not gonna probably get you over the hump.
Yeah.
Next year, maybe you have that little extra money to throw around. You see what happens with it. They aren't set up to add the guy next year, unless the team that you're trading for likes the Brooks or Porter contract.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to think that they do. So you're not really set up to add the guy that year because their salaries won't line up. You're over the cap. So it's got to be then in 28, 29. If you bridge it out, like that's the plan essentially, right? That's my also problem. It doesn't seem like that's the plan.
Yeah.
You hit the last year of the team option for Harper, Boozer. Those guys still aren't expiring that year, so they still have to like that contract. But at least you are in the green. You can try to clear out space
Yeah.
for the guy. Realistically, in this league, you're trading for every guy.
Yeah.
That you're going to want to have. They're going to have plenty of ammunition after 27, 28 with, their own picks, other picks still. Like, they're going to be fine. Actually, it looks like a lot of seconds now I think about it. So their first kind of run out after 27.
Yeah. They have like an extra Dallas pick, I think, but Dallas is.
But using your own picks, like a full collection of your own picks, should still net you basically any guy in this league at this point.
Yeah.
Because there aren't a lot of heavy hitters throwing around picks, and especially because I'll have young guys to throw around at it.
Yeah.
So you just have to hope those contracts don't age at all poorly. They have to age gracefully the entire time because you need them to be positive assets, and people are harsh on contracts in this league.
Yeah.
Like they hate any even expiring if the guy isn't perfect. So like,
yeah, which is something
you're
that,
setting it up to be harder to elevate your team.
Yeah.
Without the picks being the ones that elevate you.
Yeah.
I just would have loved to have the money to be able to do it too.
Yeah.
Like just both things. You have the money and the picks to potentially be the guy
Now we
in
have
case
the money
you
and
need
the
to fill it
drugs.
somewhere. Yeah. I mean, at this point, like if none of these picks that hit are like a superstar big, that's the hole in their team.
Yeah.
Right? Boozer's like kind of a swing big wing. We don't really know where he's going yet.
Yeah.
But you'd be looking for an elite center long term, unless Allen is just trying to be the guy. You don't need an elite center, but like you have a guard and like a combo big.
Yeah.
That you hope are the guys, and then whatever draft picks fill in. But if they all fill in guards, then you're left with filling the hole.
Yeah.
So it can happen. In that shoes, I would have loved to keep my options open, which was my point. You have to spend some money. You can't do nothing. You need to spend the floor. The Porter and Brooks contracts, don't hate them. They need to be at least a year shorter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that like we maybe not we don't have to get into it right now, but at some point we should probably talk about the ACBA's hatred for expiring contracts, because I know that like I have Anthony Simons $40 million. Like that's, to me, knowing the little that I do know about basketball, like that's a pretty decent expiring contract, just to keep your flexibility open. Like you don't really want to trade for a guy that has a guy that's a role player signed to a lot of money that has like multiple years. Like that's kind of like a good asset, especially because like if you are getting it yourself, if let's say you're signing a guy like that, like if you sign Jared Allen to I don't think he was a free agent, but if you sign a guy like that to a 1-year deal, that you can flip that for something else. Like that's kind of how you should look at it. You almost are better spending the money rather than just having the cap space, because the player also carries a little bit of value himself.
Yeah. And I think with expirings like Simons, the value isn't in them. It's just in the flexibility, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not really assets, but
Yeah.
to the team that has them, they work as placeholders in these deals where you need to get to the money.
Yep.
I think that to some extent it's better just to have the money open and you just throw whatever players you want to make the value. But failing at that, you need to spend some money. It's fine to have them set up to hit a timeline you're looking at.
Yeah.
And that may have been the case, but the timeline they hit was with a $40 million cap hold for Harper.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be tough to work around. It's certainly not impossible.
Yeah.
But it's a big cap hold to work around too.
And that is kind of the other thing that you're looking at when you are making trades. Like if you're getting an asset that like maybe you don't really love, but you maybe like some of the other assets and stuff. If the player's contract is expiring in a window that you're looking to open up some money, and the player that you have goes beyond that window, like that's a good reason to value that player a bit.
Yeah.
or not
And
player,
also
value
when
that
you're taking
asset.
on that asset. And when you're taking on multi-year deals, that's exactly what you should look at.
Yeah,
We had conversations with teams throughout as like an ORB and anything. It's like, why would you disvalue contracts in this way? Paul
yeah,
George is a big one that was thrown around. Like, it's like, why would you devalue him so much in your return
yeah,
when next year you aren't, what are you going to spend the money on? You spend it on mid-level free agents you're going to throw the money away on and regret it for years.
yeah,
Like, then it doesn't hurt you to have this big contract sitting here waiting to expire,
yeah,
as long as you get the right return. Otherwise,
yeah,
you have to be flexible with how you value contracts in some extent.
yeah,
Now, if you are a team trying to be competitive on the back end of a trade where you get assets in Paul George, then yeah, that second year does become a huge hindrance to
yeah,
your ability to repivot. It's what we talked about with the Herb Jones thing. It was a big part of the original kind of hang up with me taking him on and Siakam, and then kind of Suggs too, to an extent, right? Like, you have to look at, well, how am I going to get this good, or am I going to have to hope he bounces back? I liked Suggs enough, so I was going to swing the bat with it, but
yeah.
that's what you look at when you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean the ACBA off season is going to start dying down soon, so maybe like a good. We could also maybe get into it once we start the league specific podcasts and get those going up. But I do think that the league would
Yeah.
benefit from a more long form discussion about like asset valuation, and also we've talked a little bit about it, but the sign and trade stuff. So maybe we'll get into a longer discussion about that maybe over the next few weeks. But we are going to
Yeah.
I
pivot.
don't think we have.
Oh, we have a guest. We have a guest.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
guest
I just
speaker.
turned the show a minute ago, but I was just telling you that all the familiar ACBA things I think I've talked about with both of you at some point when you guys were going over Paul George one still. We were talking about the other night. I don't think the sign and trades ended up being too bad with compared to what people thought they were going to be in like June, the way some teams were approaching them. I know you felt you didn't love how some of that turned out, Johnny, but I just don't think.
I mean, I haven't felt like
It's not-
I haven't felt like sign and trades have breached any level of realism or even close to it in my time here. And like Steele and I joked a little bit about it, and we'll move on a little bit after this. But we'll acknowledge the Strauss chime in because we don't really have a whole lot to talk about with a couple of the other sports.
Sorry for crashing the
But
podcast.
no, it's all good. Guests are welcome.
The ACBA commissioner is allowed to crash.
Yeah. We joked a little bit about it, about how the Lakers kind of screwed our point of it because they just oversold on Walker Kessler, but like you just don't see a lot traded during sign and trades. A lot of the contracts are really just okay, we want to make the money work, and then how bad is the money to the new team, and that's how much draft capital you have to attach, but like it's usually not that bad. It's the problem is that people don't look at the player asset coming back with any value really. Like they don't factor in the contract. They're just like, I don't really have an interest in this player. It's like, okay, but like the asset might be useful to you. Like maybe you flip them in a bigger trade. Maybe you trade them for a smaller piece, so a smaller contract, but you get another asset down there. Like it's just that's the way I look at it.
Can I tell them two reasons I think that the returns end up being demanded a little higher in the ACB? And I would say like limit this to non-restricted free agents, like Walker Kessler was a restricted free agent.
Yeah.
The Jazz have the ability to keep him no matter what. Like,
yeah.
If there's a restricted free agent team wants to bring back, they're going to demand a pretty penny for that, and I think that's true in real life.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
But I'd say that the one thing is you see a lot of handshake deals. You wouldn't want an unhappy player in real life, and it's just hard for us to do. Like the PRC, I think we want to be a little more assertive in keeping people honest to their promises, but it's just a little harder to be like a mild pain in the ass disgruntled player. So that's not really, you don't have the same incentive to sort of build those relationships and stuff. As long as you're actively not bailing on your promises, I think you generally get away with it, in here. With your players.
Yeah. I understand why it happens, or at least part of the reason of why it happens. I just think it is something that should, because it's such a important way with so many teams over the cap, and like that's justified. Like so many teams, like you're not really going to be under the cap in basketball, but like I think that's something that does need to get figured out along the way.
I think the other thing which projects to be pretty different next summer is this summer, and I think even the past summer, we have very few teams with cap space. So when you have no plausible landing spots where you can say, if you don't get a good sign and trade for me to the New York Knicks, I'm going to walk and sign in Miami or whoever would have space, you lose a lot of leverage. Normally, there's at least a few teams with a ton of space that are like somewhat competitive or decent. But here it was really just Charlotte and Milwaukee, and neither of them, like both are like very early in the rebuilding. I get the Spurs too, but they were pretty early in the rebuilding, so they threw their money around.
Yeah.
So there just weren't like a lot of plausible max level landing spots for like that tier of guys, which is where we're going to trouble. When you have more landing spots and you can make that threat, then the team's like anything better is better than nothing. Whereas when you can't make that threat, they're like, you have nowhere else to go. We don't believe you. Anyway, that's my 2 cents chiming in a spot there.
Yeah, like I said, we'll probably we should probably have a longer conversation about it when we it's probably best suited when we get the league specific podcasts going. But that's definitely something I think that at least should be debated and discussed to an extent. But we are going to pivot now to the Armchair Hockey League. Steely, you mentioned that the big topic that you kind of contributed to this was the Vegas Golden Knights receiving Marco Rossi in a trade. They shipped out Isaac Howard, Kirill Kudryavtsev. I'm botching that name. Somebody will be able to give me the correct pronunciation. And then a 2028 conditional first. They get Marco Rossi, Adam Beckman's UFA rights, and a 2027 third. They also just recently signed Eli Tolvanen. So a couple big moves by the Vegas Golden Knights. What say you?
So my big thing with Vegas last year went through a lot. I mean, it started off awful and kind of went up and down. They sold off some guys, stuff like that. And there was the question kind of posed about them a month in when they put their trade blocks up and stuff. It's like, oh, so we're just kind of giving up now? Like, we ain't got going for it. And obviously, like, being a rival team of theirs, I never really thought they were giving up on it. And this is just kind of cementing that, yeah, they were going to make a move. The Tolvanen move, like, I mean, going for 3.5 for that, like just an elite shot there, like in the game at least. You know, again, I kind of have the game background on it, but like I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yeah.
As they try to kind of reestablish themselves back in the middle. Like it's a good team. You try to fill up the middle with Rossi and like Tolvanen flipping either side. Like I like that a lot, those two moves. And obviously they didn't have a lot of cap space going into this, technically negative right now. So they'll have to figure that out. But I mean, I think that they did a very good job with what they have.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that like they fell prey to the usual like, oh, the Sim is kind of screwing me early in the season. Maybe we're not as good as I thought we were, or there's just kind of no benefit to like really going all in or anything like that, or being buyers at the deadline. We'll just kind of cut our losses. We'll sell and then do like a not a retool, but like a soft kind of like quote unquote retool. But I think that a lot of times like the simulations are not gonna be like real life, where like we see big swings. I mean, in the actual NFL, if you start 0-4, that's like a death sentence. But we've seen multiple teams come back and make the playoffs from that kind of start at this point. So like, I think there's a lesson to be learned about not necessarily overreacting to the beginning of the season. But I will say that I do think that they did a good job of landing some pretty nice moves this offseason to probably fill in some of the weak points that they had last year to maybe mitigate a slow start again and kind of get the sales up right away.
Yeah, that's my point with them, and I do think there's some point if it's just not your year. I think that's kind of how I felt about them. It's not your year, and at some point, like they picked up assets that they were able to translate. Howard was in the deal they traded Schwartz from. It's you move guys out, and then clearly the point was to flip them back out when the team is ready and try to get it back under the cap. They got some moves to make to get a little more room. I think that they can pretty easily clear out another $3 or $4 million if they were trying a couple moves. I know that they are trying to move Gaudreau and may find a team for it. Give them a little breathing room, fill out a little more depth. Above the minimum essentially.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is, I mean, the roster is full right now with guys who could fill the team out. They do have an RFA who I won't name just to keep the vultures off them, but you fill in signings from there. It's like it offsets. We talk about it in football a lot, but now when they sign a $1.5 million guy, he only adds 500,000 to the cap.
Yep.
When you bury the other guy, so they'll be able to do a little more with this last $4 million than you'd think. That they can potentially clear out.
Yeah.
And just like I said, set themselves up for the year. So I think I like where they're setting themselves up to be. And for the much maligned Pacific, I think we might be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I definitely think that they are, at least right now, one of the teams you'd put in the winners of the offseason. Couple nice savvy moves. So anything else you wanted to ACFL? We just don't really have a whole lot going on right now. We are probably going to get that talk ramped up. Training camps are starting to open, so we are going to see some injuries. We're going to see some we're going to start probably getting in the prediction game here and there, but that's probably another week or two away. So anything else you wanted to go over?
Well, I figure we touch on the ACLB trade deadline
That's
here
right.
for a little bit. Obviously, yeah, football. I don't got much right now. Not locked in. I got to do extensions too, so I got to work on that. PRC. I'll be there. But so I gotta get locked in. But yeah, for now, instead of faking it, I'm not gonna try to do it too crazy there. So, but baseball, obviously, starting point here. I've had a lot of discussions with the Houston Astros. Been asked about a lot of these guys for the entirety of the year.
Yeah.
And so you start talking about teams that may, be moving off quite a bit and have guys that could benefit these playoff teams. I mean, you don't have to look much further than my backyard to start with my interim here. Things didn't go my way. And so, shipping some guys out. So they're definitely one of the bigger sellers to start. But it's always awkward to talk about yourself. So kind of looking beyond there, the Pirates and Brewers are interesting. The whole NL Central is interesting because they're all kind of not that far out of the wild card. And we're talking about 3 or 4 games out. The Pirates are 5.5. They feel a little further out, but even then it's like that's a game and a half. So I think that, and we kind of see this already with like the Reds trying to position themselves as buyers, the Cardinals position themselves as buyers. Like it seems like they think that they're going to be good enough to make the run. The Brewers maybe throwing a signal that they're going to try to be sellers. And so it just seems like they've kind of settled to where they think they're going to end up.
Yeah.
And you could kind of justify either way, but I would say if you got short-term guys like Woodruff, for instance, for the Brewers being healthy here, looking to move him, I think it makes a lot of sense from that NL Central standpoint. But they're all kind of clumped up against each other, all beating up on each other in the division. So it's a tough game of climbing out of the pits of despair there, if you will.
Yeah, I think that my big prediction for the ACLB trade deadline is I don't think we're going to see too many big moves, but if we do, it's going to be an NL team trading a good player to an AL team. Because I think the thing with the NL, we talked a little bit about it last week, is the NL is just rough. There's a lot of teams that are in the wild card race, but are also like at 500, only slightly over 500, or even under 500. And you look at like the Mets right now, and leading the NL East by last I checked by like 6 games. That you look at that roster, that's not a roster where you're like, yeah, this team's ready to contend right now. So they're like, I think that if like the start of the season, you kind of expected like, okay, we'll be competitive to an extent, but like we're not really going to be in it, and we'll just sell some of these pieces at the deadline if we're not in it, and if we're in, we'll just kind of hold pat. But think if you figured you were in it, you were only going to be in the wild card mix, and probably for that last wild card mix, you didn't expect to be leading the division by 6 games. And I think we have a couple of teams that are in not necessarily leading the division, but like fairly similar boats where it's like you don't really want to make the big swing right now because you're just not that kind of a team. But in the AL, we have a lot of teams that are really ready, and it's kind of like I could envision a little bit of an arms race to that extent. Like some team is going to be like, "This is it. We want to win now. Let's make the big swing." And the NL is the place where I think you want to do that.
Yeah, definitely so. Continuing kind of with the NL, we're talking about it. I think the Marlins might be the team doing it. For one, Trevor
Yeah.
Rogers, R3 guy. Season going the way it is, you look towards these guys at the end of their contracts.
Yeah.
When about to hit free agency, Trevor Rogers seems like a pretty easy candidate to be one of these starters on the block. Moving top line guy, he's having a good season. At one point, about 2 or 3 months in, he was the leader in the clubhouse. I think it was like 60 games, and he was a leader for the Cy Young.
Yeah.
In the NL. So even on a team like this, like he's been playing very good. Strikeouts were low, but he's never been a huge strikeout guy, if I remember him correctly, at least. So controlling runs really well. Yandy Diaz, I mean, obviously he's a monster in real life. They do have him for 3 more seasons.
Yeah.
He's on a big deal. He's one where if we're talking about that monster deal, definitely could be him.
Yep.
And I think he'd be a good get for a lot of these teams. And Jazz Chisholm is a free agent after the season. So teams in need of, help around the infield, he could be the guy. He's not probably going to be one of those huge monster return rentals.
No, but you could get a nice return, I think, for him as a rental.
I mean, I'm definitely thinking, top 100 prospect, probably a little extra.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the whole the Juan Soto craziness, right?
No.
The year, it's not going to be that because he's not quite the impact of that.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be an important piece for some playoff team should the Marlins decide to cut bait. I think that they're a little far out. I mean, 11 games back in the division, 9 games under 500. I just think when you're at this stage in the season, down 9 games like that, even if you could get a miracle run going, at what point do you want to invest your assets in that?
Yeah.
And so Nationals have been pegged as that team too, but I mean the Nationals don't have quite as much to sell. They were sellers in the offseason too. They've kind of already put themselves here for, on purpose to an extent.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes for a lot of the NL West too, but the Diamondbacks are interesting. Definitely a better team than where they've ended up. Pitching has not come through for them in a way. Like they're scoring a ton of runs, but they're not pitching great.
Yeah.
So they're a team where you can see where you would want to get. It's like if you can try to shore up some of the pitching stuff, like you could see yourself becoming a playoff team. They are 5 games below 500, 7 back in the division. Like they're not, playing great baseball right now, but the bats have came through for them in a real way. So just one of those, I think maybe could be our aggressive buyer kind of with the Reds in the NL where it's like they're the team that's under 500, but they see themselves better. And run differential kind of puts them in the middle too. So those two are my interesting kind of flex teams because, the NL is pretty straightforward otherwise, right? It's Dodgers, Cubs, then Phillies, Braves, Mets in this teams that think they're good enough or at the very least are leading the division.
Yeah.
In the Mets case,
not in a position
it makes sense to add.
Yeah, there's no argument to be made for selling any assets. There's only arguments to be made for buying.
And you think all of them are putting in calls on buying stuff, essentially. They're going to be trying to add things. When you are up above 500 or you are at least thinking you've been unlucky to be below it or at it, it makes sense to go in on it, especially when the Braves and Phillies being unlucky is them being wild card teams already.
Yeah.
So they start to put together a run. I mean, the Braves are on a 4-game win streak coming into today.
Yeah.
So you feel great about being on a 4-game winning streak coming into today.
Yep.
Then flipping over the American League, like you said, things look crazy already in the American League East. Every team over 500. Red Sox got themselves back 6-4 last 10, got them back over 500, and they were the team looking like the sellers in the AL East. And now, I mean, do you see them buy? they've been on a run.
Yeah.
Do you see them try to add to supplement the run and jump over the Orioles or Blue Jays? I think they've already ran down the Yankees. So all 5 of these American League East teams you could see being pretty aggressive buyers. Yankees have got to try to build it around Judge. They had a hot start and cooled off. Do they try to add something to be a shot in the arm?
Yeah.
The Rays are 3 of their last 7, so they are falling and can't rely on those top 2 guys. They lost 2 of their ace games, and they hadn't lost like any all year. So they're definitely in a weird spot too.
Yeah.
Coming to this deadline.
Yeah, it's definitely. We'll probably get maybe a little bit of a longer, trade deadline special podcast up or something like that. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one. I know I've shopped around a little bit and made a couple calls just to see what I can do. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting dynamic between the 2 leagues, and that usually makes for a pretty interesting trade deadline.
Yeah, so definitely. So I want to continue kind of our division stuff. Just see, obviously, Twins, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Top team. Tigers, White Sox, Royals. White Sox already signaling they're going to be happy with their first half and see you next year.
Yeah.
Trading Sonny Gray, though they are still 7 of the last 3 after the Sonny Gray trade. So they didn't give up as a team, but even still, they're down there. Guardians, if they have anybody really to sell, they will sell. But that poor team has been through it. Little Lansanity run last year gave them some false hope. Royals are interesting. They're a pretty solid team. We've talked about them a lot. Top 10 ranked, but it hasn't put together this year. They've got a lot of young pitching, so you're good with keeping all of that. But maybe to see what kind of bats they get. Jock Peterson's having an awesome year, for instance. Like he's not going to be around forever, so maybe you see if you can float another prospect out from him. At the deadline, and just kind of roll things back for next year, where I think that they'll stack up better in the American League Central. But I also thought they'd do a little better coming into this year. So what do I know? And then the West: Mariners, Rangers, Angels, right up there at the top. The Athletics kind of signaling they're going to be doing some selling. Stros, obviously, talked about them at the top. It's definitely the Mariners division at this point, 12.5 game lead, but the Rangers still in that wild card race. Angels still in that wild card race right there next to each other. I'd expect both of them to try to add stuff. Rangers will be more aggressive because that's kind of their style, but we'll see what it ends up being.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. The trade deadline is July 31st, so a week and a day away. So something that we'll definitely keep track of as we get a little bit closer.
Trade committee's got to buckle up here. It's coming.
Yeah. All right.
So I do think we will see a decent amount of moves. I think we'll see 20 probably here this week. I wouldn't be shocked. Like there's a lot of names being thrown around right now.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of depend on exactly where the bit, how big the deals get, I guess. But I think that it will be a interesting deadline. I hope.
Yeah. So all right, that's going to cover it for the ACLB. And is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we hop off?
Well, there was one more topic.
I do know there was one more topic. I'm looking for you to introduce it.
All right. Well, listen, Johnny more than I will say, we tend to classify ourselves as a bit of movie buffs.
Yeah.
So we both have seen The Odyssey.
We have. Did you see it in IMAX 70 millimeter?
I did not see it in IMAX 70 millimeter. I'm not a true cinephile. I saw it at my $8 a ticket local theater that I go to for every movie, because that is the way God intended.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you, I will tease this a little. I did not see it in IMAX 70 millimeter. I did see it in regular IMAX at a theater that I know somebody who works there, and Christopher Nolan regularly attends this theater. So he was not there, unfortunately, but
he can't get the 70 millimeter at the one he regularly attends. This is ridiculous. What kind of clothes this guy have to IMAX?
Dude, these tickets, I've never seen anything like this, like how sold out they are. It's there's 3 a.m. showings that are sold out.
Yeah, I was looking at them the other day, but I didn't. Yeah, there's nothing available around here, and I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere.
There was I saw a TikTok of a woman who went to the Chinese theater, and she got out at she got in at about 9 p.m. and it was a line like down the block, and this is like downtown Hollywood Walk of Fame right outside. Like this is a tourist trap, but um like down the block at 9 o'clock, and the audience was shuffled out. They were all filed in. They got out at about 1 a.m. and as they got out, line out the door. Like it's just insane what we're seeing for this movie. I love it. As a person that loves the movie theater, I love it.
Gotta love the movies. That's what we go to the movies for. But yeah, I don't know how much spoiler talk you want to get into here, so I don't really know. As far as like Nolan movies, if I was ranking them in general, I kind of get the feeling this is up there. I didn't see a couple of them in theaters.
Yeah.
So like I didn't see Interstellar in theaters. I didn't see Inception in theaters, and so those are obviously two of his better. So, and also I don't think I saw Batman Begins. I think I saw the rest of. Oh, Memento was too young for me too. Now I think about it, so I've only seen like half of his in theaters, and like that's obviously a pretty huge difference for like a guy like him. So
yeah,
I haven't gotten the full experience with it, but like Memento has always been like up there. I feel like that's class. Like I feel like that is the perfect encapsulation of who he is as a director. Like the way he tells the story.
Yeah,
that's always been one that stood out to me.
I will say I think the one that often gets overlooked is Insomnia, which if you haven't seen it, it's definitely it's a little bit of a tough watch just because of like the elements of the movie. Like try not to give anything away in that because I think you should see that movie. But it is he didn't write it either. It's the one movie he's directed that he didn't write. So I think I honestly, it's one of my favorites from him. It's really good, and no one really talks about it that much. It's Al Pacino and Robin Williams too.
I've seen people talking about it recently. You know, it's like let's just like Al Pacino's like last like really great performance is what I've seen people call it. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
I didn't get to that one. So that's the only Nolan one I think I haven't seen.
I will say in relation to in relation to the Odyssey though, I have no complaints about it. I have no issues with it. It's a fantastic movie, especially like the more I see people kind of review it and dig into the nuances of the movie and a lot of things that he did. I will say that I think I enjoyed Oppenheimer a little bit more. But I think it's like I said, I have no real complaints about this movie. I think that the only thing I would say is that I think I went into it with such high expectations and it just didn't quite hit that chord, like the chord that the bow plays. That was the only thing.
I see what you're doing there.
That was the only thing that really hit struck the chord for me.
I don't know. I was pretty like the storming of Troy scene, like we've seen it from both angles. That was pretty great. Obviously, Agamemnon fucking Darth Vader shit. Hell yeah. But you know, the first scene where it's like, you know, the action set piece essentially, right? It's like they're storming the castle, soldiers are fighting them sort of deal. It's like a battle.
Yeah.
And the second one where it's a massacre, you know, they're massacring just, you know, women and children. They're, you know, don't care.
Yeah.
I think the way they handled the gods was really cool.
It was, yeah.
Kind of the way they treated it's like anyone could be a god. That's the Zeus's law thing. And then it's pretty clear Zendaya is Athena. I thought that was handled really well. I thought the way that she went out and like the way she haunted him was, I think, really, I don't know, stands out to me, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. He's kind of haunted by this thing that he enabled.
Yeah.
The thing he caused, in a sense. You know, it was his plan and it was his, you know, perversion of Zeus's law.
Yeah.
That ended up kind of setting the whole thing in motion. I think that was great. But, you know, I thought it was very fun watching Tom Holland say everyone has Zendaya's eyes. That was great. I love that.
Yeah, that's the best thing. That was my favorite part of the movie, honestly, was because I really like Tom Holland a lot as an actor, but I was a little bit like, I don't know if he can handle this. I think he can bring something cool to the role, but he held his own. I came away from that movie like really impressed with him, and like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I like his acting.
I'm glad you said that. I got like a lot of people right before I saw it stuff were like, "Oh, there's like one guy who really sucks in it that we all knew it or whatever." I didn't get that impression at all
No,
watching it.
no,
Like I thought he was very good in it. Like I thought the way that he kind of reacted to the Odysseus coming back and everything like
yeah,
that, like and the way like subtly kind of reacted to it, couldn't really go all about it, and the way that like he portrayed the emotions of that, I really felt it with
he
him, like how he was there.
yeah, he took a character that you could have made like, especially the way I think that Nolan was going with it. You could have made him very weak, wimpy, and difficult to root for, but he put something into his roles where I think he's very easy to root for in pretty much every role I've seen him in, and I think that brings that brought something really unique to the role because it's like he is weak, he gets pushed around, he all this stuff, but there's still like a fight in him that you want to see be realized, and like you don't really get that payoff, which almost I think makes it better because you know that he has it in him, and he does get a little bit of it. Like you do see him have a moment. Um, and I just think like he's such an underrated actor in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, they let him do cool stuff with Spider-Man instead
Yeah.
of just trying to be, Marvelized a little
Yeah.
bit. He's had his moments with Spider-Man that I've been really a huge fan of
Yeah.
with all those, but some of it's been tough because it feels like he's in a movie that wants to make him do boring stuff
Yeah.
um, a lot of the time. But
My
I think he's gonna have a hell of a month here.
Yeah.
It looks pretty promising, kind of with what I've seen of the
Yeah.
Brand New Day.
He's also
So
grown up.
it
Like
could
when
be
he like
quite.
the first two Spider-Man movies, he is like I don't know how old he was in the second one, but like he is a teen. So like at least in the first one, like I think he was like 17 or 18 in the first one, I think. So like he's definitely grown up and grown as an actor. And I think now that he's a little bit, he's early 30s now, like I think he's definitely matured into somebody that is capable of handling more adult stuff. But my wife had the greatest. It's still like one of my favorite comparisons, and I don't know if everyone will agree, but she said that he's very much like a modern day Michael J. Fox, at least in the sense of like what types you would cast him for. Like if you were going to remake Back to the Future right now, he's the person you would cast for that role. And I love Michael J. Fox, and so I think that that's like he nails a lot of the, and I think he's actually a better actor than Michael J. Fox in a lot of ways. Like just being able to handle some more dramatic, intense situations rather than just kind of lighthearted tone stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I had not seen that comparison, but that's quite the cook actually. Hell yeah. We need to get her. We need to get her on for the next segment we do for movies.
I'll get her on.
There we go. There we go. But yeah, that it was a great movie. Go see it.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely worth
I
seeing.
think to some extent, like it's worth the admission. Like it's 100%.
It is. I will shamelessly plug AMC A List. I think it's worth it for everybody. $20 a month.
Unless you don't happen to have an AMC theater within 40 minutes of you.
No, I still get
it's
it.
Not. I'm not. I can't. I support the local theater. All right.
Yeah. No, that's the only justification I'll support is like if you don't really have an AMC and you have a local theater, go to your local theater. But AMC A List, like just the worst that's gonna happen if you're like, there's nothing really out that I really want to see. Like the worst that's gonna happen if you just pick a movie is you spent 2 hours out of your house and you didn't, and if you saw two movies that month, you didn't pay for the second one. So like it's not the worst, you know, uh, use of your budget in the world. And like at the end of the day, you might see something that's fantastic. Like we saw Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die a few months back, and I was kind of in that mode of like, there's nothing really out, and we picked it. And Sam Rockwell, I love Sam Rockwell, and I love that movie. I recommend it to anybody. So like sometimes you just get those moments where it's like, oh wow, I was actually like really impressed. That was a fun 2 hours away from home. So
No, yeah, and that is the thing I miss, because my theater, you basically get the big ones and we get them for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And some of these you'll see for a while. Like they didn't get Obsession until like week like 5.
Yeah.
And then they had it for like a week, and so it was like, well, it is what it is. I couldn't make it that week, so I hadn't seen it yet. But there is another theater in town, but that one's like $20 or something crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't ever make it to that one.
Yeah.
But as you do.
Yeah.
So but yeah, we'll be back here. We'll have more movie reviews when more movies come out. Of course,
Probably
that's what you come to us for.
Probably the next Spider-Man movie, honestly.
Probably the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, but that about does it for us. Thank you for joining me this week, Steele and Coco.
Of course,
he had to dip out. He didn't really want to hear us.
We actually violently kicked him out.
That's,
so.
Yeah. But
thank you. All I'm saying is nobody has seen him since we last talked to him.
But that is going to be all for us. Thank you all for listening. Those of you that do, we'll try to keep the consistency up with this. So expect to hear from us next week. I am going to try to post these on Sunday, probably around Sunday morning. So be on the lookout.
Oh, so they'll have a full a week and a half to see the movie. Like they're gonna see.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one, everybody.